Tom O'Neill of Gold Derby, meet the filmmaker, Scott Cooper. I'll leave it to Scott to explain.
Yes, Mr. Casey Affleck has strep throat and unfortunately won't be able to make it, but I will answer any questions on Casey's behalf, and I hope that you enjoy his tormented performance.
We're going to chat for like 10 minutes, and then I want you folks to think of even more genius questions than I've come up with. So you think, I'll warm up this guy, and I'm going to let you have at him, okay? Now let's start with Casey. Why did you hire this guy? What were you thinking?
Well, Casey, I think, is he's one of the best actors of my generation. Certainly Christian is. Casey is underrated. He's as underrated among filmmakers that I know, or friends of mine who are actors and directors. They all think Casey is one of the best talents that we have. And he's so interesting. He has this high-pitched but rough voice that kind of speaks innocence. He also is like a live wire. He's very unpredictable in most all the performances that I see him in. He also isn't what you would think of someone who would be a bare-knuckle fighter. I wanted somebody scrappy, who kind of represented the underdog American spirit. And Casey had that. And it just has always electrified the screen with all the performances that he's been in. So I wrote the piece for Christian, and once Christian came on board, we started to talk about that part, and it became very clear that Casey was the guy that we wanted. And Casey is, he's a little bit like Jeff Bridges, who was in my first film, Crazy Heart. You have to really bring him, drag him to the set. They find every reason to say no. And Casey somehow was able to, he said yes, fortunately, because he turns his brother down, he turns everybody down. But I just got lucky.
So where do you start with a story like this in terms of, actually this was a script and you rewrote it? Or?
Yeah, I was, the producers, Leonardo DiCaprio and Ridley Scott, and the studio Relativity, they offered me a very well-written piece that I just didn't want to film the themes that were in that, and I politely declined, and they came back and they said, well, why don't you tell a story about a man who gets out of prison and avenges the loss of a loved one? I've known people who've been in prison, and for someone who lost a sibling at a young age, I said to those guys, I said, if I can really personalize the story, then I'll do it. And as the grandson of a coal miner, and having grown up in coal fields in Virginia, and I wanted to tell a story about really America over these past 5 years, a crumbling economy, fighting wars on two fronts, our soldiers returning from Iraq and Afghanistan and having a very difficult time assimilating back into life, and the fact that we live in a very violent nation. So I wanted to use those themes and then really wrap the narrative around a very personal experience, and having lost a sibling, like I said, and having friends and relatives who served. And then Woody Harrelson's character is based on someone who tragically touched my immediate family in a very unfortunate way. So you tend to stare at that kind of blinking cursor, and it just Woody Harrelson hits out of you, very painfully but cathartically.
Casey's character's Rodney. You get the sense that this guy, even if he made it as a fighter, even if all his dreams came true, he would still screw it up with me.
Well, he certainly is tormented, yes. Yeah. And you get I wanted the film to have a hint of a fatalistic air to it, because we all eventually will meet our maker, and we all deal with loss and pain and tragedy, some of us much more than others. And, when we have soldiers who, I think, 22 per day who commit suicide, which is just tragic, and I just feel terribly for the men and women who serve for us, because we send them off to fight Iraq and Afghanistan and put those yellow ribbons around our trees, but when they come home after they've done the job, we just could be doing a better job, I think, helping them assimilate back into society. And his character really shows that torment, so you know that's ultimately going to be his downfall.
both of these brothers are doomed in the way they live in dark places. In Christian's case, what I find really interesting in terms of character build of his personality is this guy's an unflagging optimist, decent man in the face of all these impossible things hurled at him. And even when his girlfriend says, "Hey, I'm pregnant with somebody else's baby," he said, "Good for you, honey."
Yeah, right.
So where does that optimism come from?
Well, he's based on someone very close to me who has suffered very tragically, and who is one of the most positive people that I know, and who's inspired me for a long time. Those people do exist, and look no further than Nelson Mandela, who died yesterday, who was in prison for 27 years, and was never filled with spite, and was able to forgive those people who committed such terrible atrocities against him. So those people exist. I wish that I were that person.
I'm sure not. All right, so tell us some good stories about filming this thing. You know, some things. I want to hear the dirt. I want to hear disasters. I want to hear gossip. What do you got?
Well, I don't tend to rehearse my actors a lot because if you do that, the performances become stale. They aren't as unpredictable as you see in this film. And I never want to say, God, I wish that I had shot what I just rehearsed. So my sets, not that the set was really dour or oppressive in any way, but all of the actors in this film are extremely interior actors. And whether they prescribe to the quote-unquote method is one thing, but they aren't very jocular. You don't see them giving each other wedgies or that sort of thing on set. So my wife came to visit, and of course I wrote it for this particular town, and the town is filled with atmosphere, or some people who are less kind would say gloomy. And my wife came, and Forrest and Christian and Sam Shepard, we all had to see the police station. It was my only day that my wife visited, and the guys were all kind of in their own headspace and their own corners of their psyche trying to prepare for the scene. And about halfway through the day, she came up and she said, "It's a fun set, honey. I'm leaving." So there wasn't a lot of, where's Jennifer Lawrence when you need her, right? Burp and do whatever she does, and then gives a great performance.
Nothing ever goes according to script when you make a movie or do anything.
No.
What else?
But I will say that as someone who had a very unremarkable career as an actor, and you get a sense that maybe you had a little bit of talent as an actor, but when you're on this side of the camera and you watch what Jeff Bridges would do in Crazy Heart, or you would watch what Christian Bale or Willem Dafoe or Forrest Whitaker or Casey would do, you quickly realize that there's a difference between having a little bit of talent and being gifted. And a couple of those scenes, one in the kitchen after Casey responds to the question, why aren't you working for a living? And he says, "Work for a living, motherfucker?" And pulls out his sweatshirt. And then he proceeds to tell Christian's character what he's seen, the horrors that you and I have no idea exist, apart from what we see in the news. And when he pulls his sweatshirt over his head and screams in Christian's face, and I'm standing right next to the lens, and you say to yourself, my God, this is not something that an actor can prepare in his trailer or in his hotel room, that's living truthfully and fully in the moment. And I turn to my cameraman and I say, please God, tell me you got that, because that's not something that you're going to get on a second take. Or when you're on the trestle bridge and Zoe Saldana tells Christian's character that she's pregnant, and we know from the opening scenes with them that they both wanted to have a baby together. But Christian opens his heart and says he's happy for her, and you believe him, although you know it's killing him inside. So then you watch two actors at the very, very height of their game, and as an actor, but also as the writer and director, it's about as thrilling as it gets. Because while it isn't a comedy, you leave just elated and uplifted at the sense of humanity and human resilience that these actors bring to the screen that is just rare in any film, because most films are capes or sequels or comic books. And it doesn't give actors a lot to do. So very, very, very gratifying to have actors who are as good as these are, every moment of the film just be fully committed and not feel like they're acting for me or the rectangle of the camera lens, but allowing me to find those moments of behavior.
You said Casey's a live wire in real life. What was
Yes.
Christian like on the set? He's a bit of a live wire, his reputation's go.
Christian's incredible. He's
Good incredible.
Oh, remarkable. I mean, he's one of the smartest, most thoughtful actors I've ever worked with. He understands character, story, emotion. The performance that he gives here, the reason I wrote the part for Christian, I didn't know Christian, was because I wanted to see a sense of vulnerability from him that I'd never seen, or a gentleness, a soulfulness, combined with the sense of character and strength that he has, that he displays. And I couldn't have asked for a better partner because he is the glue of this film, and he has the most difficult part in the film. It isn't the showiest, but those are always the toughest to play. And I found myself stripping away dialogue because Christian could say so much with non-verbally, with a look or a glance, the way he would move, it's astounding just how talented he is. I recall after our premiere, I think the lady was French, which makes sense. And she said to me, "Oh, Christian is your man, Brando." I said, "Yes, I think he is. I think he's doing his best work." And I think you'll see that in the David Russell movie coming out, that you'll see a whole other facet to him. So on set, he was, of course, maintaining this character from the moment he arrived in Pennsylvania until I saw him a week later in my house. I mean, he's fully committed in every way. And people forget that he's Welsh and has a British dialect because he's just so talented. But I can't speak highly enough of Christian or anybody in this cast. I mean, they elevated the material in ways that you could never really hope.
What about you? First film set I was ever on, and I saw the director do 60 takes of a scene, and I went, "What the hell is this?" And then you see someone like Clint Eastwood, who's famous for one take, move on, one take. Where do you fall on that scale?
Certainly not 60. I've never had that kind of money to have 60 days. Nor I have so much respect and reverence for my actors, I would never push them to that place, because if you cast wisely, which I think I did with Crazy Heart, and certainly with this, you know that I've done a lot of investigative text work with the actors well before we start shooting, so that they fully know everything about their characters, and in that moment can make those decisions. And if I feel like they need an adjustment or a note, I can give it to them. And these actors were what I would think it would be like riding a horse in the Kentucky Derby. Those horses are so well trained that you just give them a little bit of rein here, or a little bit of boot here, or a spur, or whatever it might be, and they can take that. And these actors can do that. So, 4, 5, 6, 7 takes, and then I will give them a couple to really do something unexpected, and then you try to find those moments. But with material that's as heavy as this and solid as this, if you did 60 takes, Jesus, it would kill them.
What questions do you guys have?
Yeah, please, if anybody has anything.
All right, we'll start with the lady down here.
You just referred to the investigative text work.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, Christian and I would talk about why his character didn't, why he stayed at Braddock, Pennsylvania, and went to the same job that his father went to for years, even though he knows that the job killed his father. Why he didn't move out of town, why he didn't take up another line of work, what type of music his character would listen to, what is his relationship to his neighbors. So every time he would walk out of his house and go to his truck, is he looking for one of his neighbors, or is he just going straight to his truck and didn't want to have any relationship with them? Does he subscribe to any magazines? Does he read books? All those sort of things that you think might not really mean much, but the cumulative effect is very meaningful. It really gives them a great sense of being grounded. And then when they fully understand the character from a very deep interior place, then when you're on the set and they might be struggling with a moment, you just give them a very minor, quiet note and just unlock something that you've discussed well before. And they're like, forgot that. And you see it manifest itself in performance. Hope that makes sense.
Way back up there.
I really love the movie. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, man.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the ending. I know as I was watching it, you see Christian Bale's character shoot Woody Harrelson's character. First, what you say to yourself, always say to myself, this is what it
The portraiture, yes. He's asking the very final shot of the film, and does Forrest Whitaker certainly help him? You know, Forrest Whitaker, of course, there are 3 men in that field, and one of them is dead. And Forrest Whitaker realizes that this is a man, Christian Bale's character, who has suffered a great deal of tragedy and loss. And this is a man that many people have wanted to bring to justice, Woody's character. So that final moment is Christian Bale sitting at his dining room table that we've seen 3 or 4 times in the film before, where he's taking most of his meals with his deceased father, deceased mother, deceased brother. And though he isn't in prison, Forrest is taking care of that. He's in a prison of his own, and it's a man who is battling his soul and living with the consequences of violence. And it's also an homage to The Godfather 2, where Michael Corleone is sitting in his wingback chair when Brother Fredo has just been murdered outside his window in Lake Tahoe, and he too has to live with those consequences. And that shot could be 6 weeks later, 6 months, it could have been a year later. I never want to put too pointillistic fine point on anything in the film, so it's really interpretive. And if you think he should have gone to prison, because he certainly didn't think that he was going to get off when he pulled the trigger. He probably thought he was going back to prison, that he was going to get killed. Who knows? But he was making the ultimate sacrifice for his brother, but he's living with those consequences of violence. And because I'm a very positive guy by nature, as you can tell from this film, I think that he is going to find peace and contentment in his life.
We're moving geographically around the room. How about someone over here? Over here, yes.
You said something about The Godfather Part 2.
Yeah.
As far as cinematic influences go, are there any other particular filmmakers that you borrow? Because I saw a little bit of The Deer Hunter. I don't know if I just...
Well, the instance where he didn't shoot the deer happened to me when I was 16, and I was hunting with my very macho uncles in the mountains of Virginia, and I had a clean shot of a deer, and he could have easily killed it, and I just couldn't pull the trigger. And my macho uncle said to me, "Hey, bud, did you see anything?" And I said, "No, I didn't see anything." So I didn't have the courage to tell them that. So it could be considered an homage to Deer Hunter. That really happened to me. Influenced by, of course, Coppola, William Friedkin, his kind of searing realism, the Dardenne brothers from Belgium, several European filmmakers that I like. I love Jean-Pierre Melville. Of course, Malick's work, John Cassavetes, all of those. You tend to steal from or curate from the best if you can, because I could never afford to go to film school. So my film school was just watching all of the masters over and over and over with the sound off, and how they told the story with the camera, how they moved it or didn't move it, more importantly, and mise-en-scene and performances.
Okay, up in this direction now. Yes, Caesar.
You mentioned that you had a career as an actor, or
Yes.
or as an actor. Is that something you feel, you mentioned now that you basically learned your style of filmmaking from watching other directors, do you feel your ability as an actor has grown through watching them, and is acting something you continue to want to pursue in the future?
Well, it's interesting. Is acting something I want to pursue, and ever since the success of Crazy Heart, I've had more offers as an actor than I ever did, which is odd. Yeah, I really love it. It's my first love, and I'm an actor first and foremost, but I've been so busy writing and directing, it takes such a great deal of time that I really haven't had a shot, but I might do something again with Robert Duvall, who's a close friend and mentor of mine, and who's asked me to do something with him that he might be directing. But it has certainly made me a better actor. Anytime that you're around, really, and Mr. Duvall would say to me that, and Marlon Brando used to do the same thing, they would watch documentaries over and over and over, because that's where you see real behavior. It's unfortunate that so many performances in our industry get rewarded the bigger they are and the larger they are and filled with histrionics, and I don't respond to that kind of acting at all. And I prefer where an actor is completely and utterly egoless and selfless, as if you were watching a documentary and people aren't, for the most part, certainly older ones, older documentaries, people aren't performing for the camera like they are now. In any type of reality television show, you know that people want to be discovered in their acting. But if you watch documentaries like Harlan County, USA, which is Barbara Koppel's landmark documentary, and Woody's character is named for the town that's based in. Those people are just completely unadulterated and free, and that's the kind of acting that I like. And you don't see the actors really pushing the emotion.
We have time for 2 more questions here.
That's fast.
Yes, sir. The emotional journeys that the characters went through was amazing.
Thank
And
you.
I'm curious, from the time that you wrote it, what you conceived of these characters, and then the end product, did you have any surprises or any changes in the characters than what you originally thought they would be like?
Well, no, the script is pretty much from faded to faded black, what I wrote. There was some improvisation here and there, but anytime you have that black and white on the page, and you have actors of this caliber, they're always going to elevate it and make it richer and deeper. And I would go home every day saying to myself, my God, I'm seeing some of the best work as an actor that you could ever film. And it's selfless and egoless, and it isn't all about watch me act, because that's why we all become actors in the first place. We all want our parents to love us as kids, and we get up and we dance for them, or you become an actor because you want people to look at you, myself included. That's why everybody becomes an actor. Otherwise, you do it, just do local theater in Sarasota, Florida, or you do monologues in your room. But these actors are actors who, it's tough to explain that they really are doing it to serve the story. Because Sam Shepard and Willem Dafoe and Forrest Whitaker and Christian, they don't need any more adulation or adjuration, because people have loved them for a very long time. So they're doing it for the purest sense. I really believe that. So every day they were just making. I would drive home thinking, my God, they're just so good and so real and so heartbreaking that this may be my last film.
A question over here. All right, yeah, this is our last question. Go ahead.
The camera is so, you have this way of filming, which is where the camera is so non-existent. There's no show off in the
Thank you.
shots. Can you talk a little bit about how you design these shots and the mise en scène? Because obviously the actors, or they feel they're not on their marks and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't
It
use
feels like
mark.
you're following them more.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Can you talk about
I will. When I met with my cinematographer, who's a Japanese cinematographer named Masanobu Takinagi, who's extraordinary, I took probably 300 photographs. Robert Frank, Dorothea Lange, Walker Evans, and I went through all of them, and I said, there's a respect and a reverence that he pays, that these photographers pay to their subjects, and you have to peer very closely to see if they are period or not, even though, of course, you know they are from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And I never want the audience to say, wow, look how clever Scott Cooper is with the camera. Because it isn't about me, it's about Christian Bale and Willem Dafoe and Zoe Saldana and Casey Affleck, and about the world and the atmosphere. Same with my editing of the score, production design. I wanted to feel timeless and nothing to really draw too much attention to itself, so that you're fully invested in the world and that you find the experience so intense and realistic and heartbreaking or moving or exhilarating that you don't even notice that there's a camera. So I don't really use marks for the most part, and it gives the actors a great deal of freedom. Kind of as pretentious as it sounds, when I set out to make the film, I said to Masa, cinematographer, I said, I would love to strive for the classicism of John Ford with the truthfulness of John Cassavetes through performance. And he totally got it. And we found behavior and performances as opposed to having them act for us, and without being too clever with the camera, but trying to pay homage to Dorothea Lange and Walker Evans and Robert Frank. Are you French?
No, I speak French, but I'm not. But I mean, it's just, if you keep doing the same awesome films, it's amazing that these movies, nobody's doing them anymore.
No, and I'm surprised anyone's here, because this might be the last one that gets made. I don't know if it's going to make any money this weekend, man.
This isn't just any screening. You are in the presence of this filmmaker on the Friday night that this movie is rolling out nationally, and this is, I think you got a good hit here. Thank you all for coming. Good night.
Thank you so much.